I don't invest in crypto, I don't invest in Bitcoin because of crashes like this, right? We've heard this time and time again. Bitcoin can indeed crash by 60%, 70%, 80%, has happened several times in the past, but actually those kinds of crashes are opportunities if you believe that Bitcoin will stay around. Now in this video, I don't want to reiterate Bitcoin's history, and I don't want to talk about how dollar cost averaging is long-term beneficial. Instead, I want to talk about an interesting mathematical concept that gives us more return the more volatile something is. So this is a simulation of buying Bitcoin for $10 every day since the beginning of 2019. And because we purchase more and more over time, right, this is here indicated in orange, we tend to see higher highs as well. So even Bitcoin hasn't risen much in the last 3 years because it did go through quite a bit of a correction and a subsequent recovery. When we dollar cost average in, we get higher highs over time that exceed the delta that we have invested during that time. Now, when we dollar cost average in, we buy the same US dollar amount also when prices are depressed. That means if an asset stays around, if an asset can recover at some point, the more volatility we have or the more it crashes over time, the better it is. And this effect has a very strong impact. Have a look at this. Imagine instead of buying Bitcoin over the time, you would have bought TRX or Tron with the same US dollar amount for the same kind of time. The returns you would have gotten, right, the end result would have been very similar. A portfolio value of a bit over $80,000 for both. But have a look at TRX relative to Bitcoin during that time period. Since beginning of 2019, TRX relative to Bitcoin went down by 50%. It performed worse than Bitcoin by a lot. Yet dollar cost averaging would have given us the same end result. And the reason is we've got way more volatility in Tron relative to Bitcoin. Tron dropped from top to bottom relative to Bitcoin by more than 90% during that time period. So if you bought for the same 10 US dollars daily during that time period, and then Tron recovers just a little bit, it doesn't even have to be to initial values, then still with dollar cost averaging, we can get to a similar return. So volatility is really our friend. The more the market panics and the more we can still stand steady and buy during those panics, the better it is. If an asset is less volatile, it doesn't give us those opportunities and we can't buy that low. And this is an effect we can see across the board. Have a look at this. Let's say instead of buying Tron, we would have bought Nexo. Again, since 2019, again, we would be very close to $80,000 in portfolio value today. And again, Nexo underperformed Bitcoin by roughly 33% during the time. The reason for the similar end portfolio value is this extended period of time of 1.5 years or so where Nexo underperformed Bitcoin. And so the art really is to find an asset where there's a lot of volatility, where people sometimes panic, but where you still have strong conviction in that it will stay around for the long term. If you're right and the asset will get a lot of usage, that's great. So for example, over here, we've got Bitcoin in orange and we've got Solana in blue. And had you dollar cost average during this time period in Solana instead of Bitcoin, you would be now way ahead. Because again, there was a time where Solana was way more depressed. This video is sponsored by the Premium membership. I never take any money from any crypto project. I never take any affiliate links from centralized exchanges. I never pump and dump coins. Instead, I offer valuable tutorials in the Premium membership. Feel free to check it out. The issue is that dollar cost averaging into another cryptocurrency but Bitcoin is also more risky because we don't know if that cryptocurrency will recover again. For Bitcoin, we've got the Bitcoin ETF, we've got very nice tokenomics, we've got constant demand, we've got the narrative of Bitcoin being gold 2.0, the hardest of the monies. But for a lot of altcoins, we tend to have increasing competition over time and not every altcoin will recover. For example, Polygon Matic is not recovering, right? Had you bought into Matic instead of Bitcoin and you dollar cost average in, then you would now be in for rather some trouble. The decline from February 2023 to today relative to Bitcoin is 90%. And the big question is, can this recover, right? Will Matic recover in the same way as Bitcoin always recovers, or will it be eaten up by all of that competition? And so in the case that we pick an asset that does in the end recover, the rewards are very, very high. Unfortunately, the odds are not in our favor. So have a look at this. This is different dollar cost average simulations if we started in 2023 or 2022 or 2021, etc. And we look at different assets. And let's start off again with 2019. This is how this chart is ordered, and Bitcoin is over here. If we had dollar cost average into Bitcoin since 2019, we would have had a return of 293% relative to our invested money. But here's the issue, right? There are a few tokens that outperformed very, very well. For example, BNB or Phantom or Dogecoin or Aave. And that outperformance is also not that consistent. For example, had you instead started dollar cost averaging in 2021, with Bitcoin you would have gotten 83%, but with a lot of other assets you would have done worse. The issue is also, even if you look at 2019, that there are those nice outperformers, but that there's also way more underperformers. Let's just look at the last 3.5 years. So let's order this time by 2021. We've got Bitcoin again being in the top 10 roughly. There are a few tokens that outperformed dollar cost averaging, but then there is this long list of tokens that also underperformed. So dollar cost averaging into anything else but Bitcoin is potentially risky. And the question is that really risk that gets properly compensated? If you have picked Solana, that's of course great. But if you picked Polygon Matic instead, that's not so great. And so that's the fundamental reason why I treat Bitcoin very differently to altcoins. Altcoins are nice for short-term speculation, for simply just jumping on the trends. Bitcoin is good to simply just buy in and hold over the long term because it will recover at some point because of the tokenomics. The brand of Bitcoin is simply too strong. We've also got regulatory clarity. We've got traditional finance piling in as well. And yes, more returns can be generated even by long-term holding other altcoins, but unfortunately the odds are against us. The likelihood of doing worse than Bitcoin is very high. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. In case you've got Telegram, then feel free to join us. There's a link to Telegram directly below this video. Looking very much forward to chatting with you.